It's time for Rogue Sounds, our weekly roundup of live music events in the region this month. Music maker and critic Josh Gross and Jeffrey Riley share a list of 5 events you don't want to miss.
Josh Gross, welcome back to the Jefferson Exchange, and give the broad overview. I mean, what kinds of things are we looking for in October that we didn't get in the previous 9 months?
Spooky things.
Spooky things.
No, not really. I don't know. You said October. You're supposed to say that, I suppose. I don't know. You're getting. I mean, there's been kind of a late summer touring schedule. I think sometimes the pandemic sort of shifted the calendar back a little bit, and some of those changes sort of stayed. So I think there's some really cool stuff happening in October. There's some opportunities to see some things that are a little unusual. There's a couple venues closing, and you're kind of getting to swoop in on the last little bits of their offerings. So, I guess spooky things, okay. Venues closing, things that are out of time. I don't know. And one really, really cool, unusual cinematic experience that I'm very excited to talk about.
Is that the one involving a Sleepbomb, perhaps?
That would be Sleepbomb, yeah.
Okay, We'll get to that in just a bit. That's a third on our list. Top of the list is Box Elder coming to Johnny B's in Medford on October the 7th. Here is Box Elder performing Minimums. One of these days I'll have to go back and check. I think you always try to hook us with a dance beat to start off with.
I usually actually try to do it chronologically. I just happen to like stuff that's dancey. But it would be interested to see how the Venn diagram of that overlaps.
Really?
And it's interesting to call Box Elder dancey. I mean, I think they got a real peppy thing. But this is a band from Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Not a town known for its alternative rock scene by any means. And this is a band that started as a recording project and just became popular enough online that it sort of spiraled out, but really had to make its way in the Jackson Hole music scene, which is much more focused on country and alt country. And so really had to focus on having stellar instrumentation and, fantastic songwriting enough to really sort of carve out its own little niche, and really did a masterful job of that, picked up some festival gigs, and they're coming on their first ever West Coast tour. And it's pretty cool stuff, really great, really good songwriting. And I believe the guitar player actually has a sponsorship from Fender. So it's they're really kind of leaning in on trying to make it the best it can be, and I think it's really landing. It's some great stuff.
Yeah, some fun stuff there. That is Box Elder performing at Johnny B's in Medford on Saturday night, 7th of October. This is Rogue Sounds with Josh Gross here on the Jefferson Exchange. We move on to Bart Budwig. I'm trying to call him the German version, Bart Budwig, but Bart Budwig is coming to the Jefferson Center for the Arts, JCA, in Mount Shasta on the 17th of October. This is called Whiskey Girl.
Don't let your long hair down. Don't let out a smile, don't let out a frown. 'Cause you don't lead me on at all, my dear. And let me tell you something, you are doing it well. You moved down south, you just had to get away. Couldn't love me anymore, and that's how things had to stay. You can drink your whiskey, and I'll drink mine too, and we'll think about each other when our drinking is through.
I noticed a little more every time I listened to that piece. I didn't notice the hand claps until that time through, but there's a lot of fun stuff going on.
Yeah, I think he's one of those guys who he's the master of the subtleties, because if you were to just sort of do a real quick flyover, you'd say oh yeah, he's got a sort of folk country sound, sort of standard stuff. But what makes Bart Budwig great what makes him be this guy who's just been around for so long and just doing such a great stuff is all this, like the master of the subtleties, just the little vocal intonations, the little bits of hand claps to add in, just the sort of masterful presentation. You know, it's just something that really sort of grabs a hold of you and doesn't let go. And you don't notice a lot of what's happening because it's kind of like it's all that devil's in the details kind of work. Because otherwise, it's, you know, they're kind of, a lot of them are sort of simple songs, but man, do they really grab a hold of you.
And what can you tell us about Bart Budwig and where he's from?
He is from Idaho originally, I believe, and he's just one of those guys who sort of tours around and, you know, like the cosmic cowboy lifestyle, doing that sort of, you know, like a folk troubadour thing, a lot of storytelling and joking mixed in with a lot of just great songwriting, you know, just sort of hitting some of the off-market, some of the weird little between towns that most of the country lives in, you know, and I think that's something that really speaks to people. They're kind of like, yeah, this is feels like the American experience to me more than, you know, whatever I see on the TV.
You talk about bro country there?
No, yeah, I guess. Or, you know, even, you know, like just so much of you know, media is consolidated between New York and LA, you know, and that's a very small portion of the country. And most of us live out in the rest of it. And he's one of those guys who is from the rest of it, from the sort of dark spots of the map. And those are the places he continues to tour. And those are the audiences that they speak to. And they see their lives reflected in what he's doing. And it's, you know, it's not the bro country and it's not the whatever, like it's the top of the pops, but it's just the kind of like, you know, this is the real stuff.
Bart Budwig coming to the Jefferson Center for the Arts in Mount Shasta on the 17th of October. We're talking about it with Josh Gross here on Rogue Sounds. So up next is Sleepbomb. This is the one we teased a little bit about earlier. And so these guys are involved in cinematic kinds of music.
Yeah, so Sleepbomb is a really innovative art project from San Francisco, and they don't tour very often because of sort of logistical problems, challenges. And this is one of the first big tours that they've done. But they do is they write original scores to sort of classic fantasy and horror films. So they've done an original score to like Conan the Barbarian and The Night of the Living Dead and like things like that. And for this particular tour, they're going from San Francisco to Portland and back again, and they're going to make a couple stops in Southern Oregon to perform their original score to the classic German expressionist silent film, The Cavern of Dr. Caligari. And they're doing, they're sort of specializing in what's called like doom or drone, which is kind of just like a lot of big, heavy textures of guitars and rock and roll. But it's like, it's really interesting because if you've ever seen that film or if you're familiar with it, it's where like a lot of surrealist imagery comes from. Like Tim Burton is basically doing a modern version of this particular silent film from I believe the 20s. And it's incredibly iconic, and paired with the sort of like largesse of the sonic textures this band is creating, it's a really fascinating combination. And it's so rare that you get to see something that's so like, you know, it's usually a band gets up, they play some songs, but they've really created a score specifically to go with. It's a full audiovisual experience, and it's not quite, you know, the Sphere in LA, but it's what we got down here in the rest of the country.
Right. So Sleepbomb will do Johnny B's on October 18th and Local 31 in Ashland on October 19th, the next night. And so now that we have that set up, I want to warn people, this might scare children and small dogs, but this is called Plague from the Path of Pins. Okay, so Real Words did start there, but I wasn't sure they were FCC license compatible, so that's why I dropped it down there. But they're basically they're playing with the movie, Josh, while this goes on.
Yeah, they have a projector screen set up, and they show the movie and they play along with it in real time. So there's a live score. It's kind of like going back to the early days of cinema when there were no recorded audio, so all the music was performed live. And I think this is really interesting for a number of reasons. I mean, one, this is like some fairly heavy music, but this is, you know, a sort of thriller horror movie that they're showing, so it does pair up. But there's been, in recent years, a real interest in some of the sort of more cinematic and compositional elements. Like Hans Zimmer headlined Coachella only a few years ago, as did Danny Elfman, both very noted film composers. And it's really interesting to me to see that, like, that stuff is taking a hold in the pop, the sort of, like, highest levels of, like, sort of pop achievements, but it's also sort of still that there are small independent bands saying, hey, you know what, I want to score a film too, why not? And they're doing it with, things that are in the public domain or things that they have access to and things that you may have some familiarity with in a way that then sort of reframes it, which to me, that's like the ideal experience is where you say, here's something that you've seen before, but here's an entirely new way of experiencing it. And I think that's just super cool. And I'm so excited that they're going to be coming to town.
Sleepbomb with the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari at Johnny B's in Medford, 1018, and Local 31 in Ashland, 1019. We move on now to Balkan Bump. This is called Rabat. So you choose the pieces and I choose the portions, and I was looking for something to highlight the band, and it's just fun stuff. A bunch of different instrumentations in there.
Yeah. The mind behind Balkan Bump, Mr. Wilma Gibb, is a professional ethnomusicologist who has a real specialty in some of the like Balkan brass and Eastern European jazz that are like big part of some of the like former Soviet bloc regions. And, there's a very rich sort of tradition of music there surrounding brass. And he was someone who studied that a lot, but then was also really interested in sort of like the electronic dance music that you would see coming out of the Bay Area. And he sort of found a way to blend these two things together into this sort of like, Balkan bump, where it's like it's bump music and you're having like a good, fun dance, like, sort of Western style dance party, but with a lot of melodies and, melodic motifs and, rhythmic motifs pulled from some of this Balkan brass, Eastern European like jazz tradition.
Okay, Balkan
which
Bump
is a very
and
cool
Ashland.
combination,
Ashland Armory on the 27th of October for Balkan Bump. A couple minutes left, and let's get in Gorilla Toss coming to Bruno's Cavern in Cave Junction on November 1st. It's fun. I had some trouble picking a portion of that because it just changes so many times.
Yeah, that's kind of their thing. They like to throw a lot at you. Like this is a band, Gorilla Toss, that sort of started in the little-known college town of Boston. And, like moved up the sort of East Coast and to New York, and I think they currently live in Brooklyn. And they were really started off as a sort of like noisy, like punk-adjacent band, and then really got into sort of like some of the post-punk themes of like a lot of time signature changes and a lot of just sort of like interesting, bright textures. And what you have now is this kind of like hybrid of, like interesting electronic textures and sounds and sort of like odd time signatures, but with that really sort of gleeful, manic energy. You get this kind of like joyful chaos. And it's really fascinating stuff. And they're going to be coming through Cave Junction to play Bruno's Cavern. And I saw a post on the Bruno's Cavern Facebook page the other day that they're planning to close, and this may be the last show that they do, which is a real tragedy because this is the sort of thing that, was really exciting to see more of coming through the area.
Right. Okay. That was the venue you were talking about. Yeah.
Send it out with a bang,
Yep. Okay. So Box Elder at Johnny B's in Medford on the 7th of October. Bart Budwig at the Jefferson Center for the Arts in Mount Shasta, 10/17. Sleepbomb at Johnny B's in Medford, 10/18. And Ashland, Local 31 on 10/19. Balkan Bump at the Ashland Armory on 10/27. Gorilla Toss at Bruno's Cavern and Cave Junction, November 1st. Josh Gross, Rogue Sounds. Thanks as always.
Always glad to be here, Jeffrey.